Welcome to Anagalactic in this synthetic series. This is Saturday, February 7th. I always keep a timestamp. Currently, we are attempting to redefine space, which was done only once in history, until the time of Newton, and for about a century thereafter. Space was space with no characteristics. But with the advent of Albert Einstein, a new parameter was added to redefine space. It's a near miss. Albert Einstein was able to accidentally discover the perpendicular relationship between time and space, which is the definition of space-time. This adds a characteristic to space that it never had and still does not have, although it's an interesting overlap. That time can be proved, as Albert Einstein did prove, is orthogonal with 3D space. Therefore, 3D space, which is 3 linear dimensions, is now extended to a new definition of space that includes time as a fourth orthogonal vector in the reverse direction of space. This makes the 3 spatial components, which are numbers, quantities in the 3 axial directions, perpendicular with negative time. The fact that time is made negative in this construction is forced by the nature of the superspace to 3D, which then would be 4D, which does not allow a fourth spatial dimension since none exists. The advent of 4D space was in the 19th century, and it saw no usefulness, and so was virtually forgotten, except to note that it changes the definition of curvature slightly. What we do need is a definition of space curvature that has never been achieved, although certain mathematical tools have been employed to access curvature with linear numbers. Space-time is said to be relativistic for the exact reason that space is no longer space. Instead, space only exists relative to time. Is that correct? It cannot be absolutely correct because the Einstein field equation establishing the relationship between 3D linear space, which is cubic, and negative time, which makes it orthocubic with a twist, that is still linear. The universe is not linear, and currently we are exploring the limits of the universe, and therefore, by definition, we have reached the end of the road. We all admit this. Nobody any longer denies that we have failed. We disregard the incentive of money. Without money, there would be no further research. Research is carried on, but under false auspices, for I have proved that linear geometry, along with its linear number system, invoking linear algebra, which consists of just one operator, add, cannot possibly see. There is no way to see the universe with linear logic. The linear logical system is sequential based on cause and effect. That is no longer adequate to describe reality as we now know at both ends of the cosmic spectrum, which is exactly no more and no less than a spherical framework. In this spherical framework, in order to have the geometry which corresponds to physics, which is our closest approximation to reality, because we can all agree on what we can see and measure, therefore, the discovery in the 20th century of sphericity at all scales now must be taken absolutely seriously. You cannot use linear logic. That means directly, you cannot use linear anything. That, if it can be proved, which I claim is easily proved, would be the worst news that the beast ever heard, because that would end the charade. Linear algebra can only proceed so far, and the exact limit of how far it can proceed is the jump from unity on the radius to the irrational value on the circle, which translates to an equally irrational surface value of the sphere, as I have carefully proved. Therefore, the circle that we observe on the plane, when we use a compass or whatever tool to draw the circle, that is an eigencircle of a unique sphere. That is one of the most profound statements you will ever hear, and I will now prove to you the number system that proves what I just said. The linear number system is based on a polarity on the line. No one denies that. It is called plus and minus. Plus implies add, which is one of the two paired operators. So add, as I have carefully proved, is the operator for the line. The metric is called distance. That can only be positive, and therefore we use half of the line. But now your clever mathematicians have figured out ways of utilizing the reflection of the positive distance numbers to indicate antidistance, and antidistance is exactly half the line. That is the wrong operator, and therefore that is the wrong object in the plane. Is there another object in the plane? There is exactly and only one other object that you can draw and see in the plane. So our definition of space recommences prior to Euclid with the question, what is the plane? if you begin with two orthogonal lines, as Euclid did, then you get modern physics. That has failed. What is the solution? You must reparameterize the plane on two linear numbers, because those are the computable numbers embedded in the line, which I discovered. Those numbers are fractions. And a fraction, by definition, is a two linear component number. And that is a different number system that I will now explain and define and apply to every question that exists in physics right now at the leading edge, presently February 2006. These numbers, which are called fractions, must be carefully defined in order to utilize the two-component number system which the universe uses in order to compose a number system which is equally coherent with the number system we use now, which has a most specific definition. Can you define the number system that mathematicians use in one sentence? Here is that definition. The linear number system that has been used exclusively since the dawn of human history to the present day is a one-component number system that is quantized on the line with an origin to give the metric for distance. That is the definition of mathematics. Currently, what is left out is multiplicative space, the traditional name for the other parametrization space for the plane, because there is exactly and only one other object equivalent to the line. It is called the closed line, and that has a most interesting name. The closed line, not this, but this, is called a circle. And that is what Euclid missed. It was beyond his reach. It was beyond Einstein's reach also. It was beyond Dirac's reach, Feynman's reach, Witt's reach, and every living mathematician are failures. They have failed science. They're flunkards because they don't know the other planar object called the circle, which has its own number system that is in every way comparable to the linear number system. And therefore, we have to repeat history the right way in order to gain not linear algebra, but circular algebra. Do you know the definition of algebra? Einstein could tell you. It's the use of equations with placeholders for numbers. That is algebra. X and Y for the plane makes planar algebra. The method of gaining the algebra for the plane, beginning with two orthogonal lines, is so hideously convolute, as has been proved in physics and mathematics generally. That system can be integrated into a coherent, closed, complete number system. Listen very carefully. That does not use add. Add is the problem. Add is the shackle on the leg. Because when you consign yourself to the operator add, you cannot get rid of the circular singularity at the center of the supermassive black hole, and the Big Bang is nothing except an exploding SMBH. The number system that replaces the one-component number system based on the operator add is a two-component number system called the reduced binary fractions, exactly equivalent to the binary number space beginning at 2 to the power of 0. 2 to the power of 0 has been proved to be equal to 1. 2 to the 0th power equals 1. That is the basis of the universal number set. And those will be the only numbers that exist in reality. Your number line has been outmoded. I discovered integral number space. That exactly implies that I discovered intrinsic geometry. The world's first new geometry is called intrinsic geometry. How does that get defined? It is the geometry of a surface. A surface. The circle possesses that property. The line does not. And no matter how many more lines you add, all the way up to space-time 4, it has a non-existent number as its reference frame. 0. That number never existed. Can anybody prove that? Yes, it's already been proved by a man from Switzerland. Albert Einstein proved that your linear distance metric is at best incomplete. I have proved it is also incoherent. And therefore, you can no longer use the additive identity. That has been erased. You cannot use add ever, because you cannot use zero, because it is not a quantity. Zero, by Euclidean definition, does not exist, and therefore your geometry falls apart, literally, at the seams. That's why you have the cosmological constant. That's why you have cosmological expansion. That's why you have the Big Bang. That's why you can't understand redshift. And that's why the black hole will forever be beyond your ken, your understanding, your insight, your mathematics, your anything, your endless verbiage in the language of calculus and complex numbers. That's done with! I solved it! The fractions are an infinite number set, but there is a subset of the fractions that your computers use called the binary fractions. These, strictly speaking, as I have proved, although I'm not the first, are the binary fractions, powers of 2. In a 2-component number system where both numbers in the componency space of the plane must be whole numbers. They are called counting numbers. 1 is the lowest of the counting numbers. That number is not, repeat, not the additive identity. The additive identity in geometric space is the Euclidean point. That's out! And this is the beginning of the world's first non-Euclidean geometry. Fuck Bolyai and fuck Lobachevsky. They achieved linear insights, which have baffled everybody ever since, because it's the same wrong path as space-time. Space-time is the furthest reach that linear algebra will ever reach. It is now known to be a dead end. Space-time is a sham. There is no such thing. Why not? Because it's linear. It's Euclidean. It has a reference frame of 0. It uses add. It uses the line. It uses a grid on the plane. It uses cubes in space. And when you go to hyperspace, it's hypercubic. That is a mistake. So Albert Albert Einstein is wrong. Absolutely wrong. Time is not perpendicular to space, and space-time is shit. Instead, we can utilize the valid insight of Einstein, which is simply this: there is orthogonality somewhere. I discovered exactly where that orthogonality resides, and it is not, repeat not, on the Cartesian plane. And in case you didn't know it, space-time is plotted on a Cartesian plane. That makes no sense because there is no zero. The universe does not recognize that number, that concept, or the Euclidean point. Those are non-existent, and the only illusion that's current in science right now is the zero at the center of space-time. That means that time can go to zero. In the supermassive black hole, nobody questions that. What is the result? Have you read any reports about what your astro-fucking-physicists say about the super-fucking black hole? The supermassive black-ass hole. What is the current state of cutting-edge science on this most important object that has ever been discovered in the history of mankind? What is it? I will show you. It has recently been proved by Neil Turok and his team that the singularity, which is a curvature singularity indicating the end of science, the end of physics, and the end of rational logic, that is the current definition of the supermassive black hole. It destroys everything we ever knew. Nobody in a half a century has made the slightest progress in making a dent in that contradictory formulation of the supermassive black hole singularity, where physics ends. Neil Turok has discovered, using linear algebra, using Goliath's sword to chop off the head of Goliath, that you do not any longer have an interior to that surface. There is literally nothing inside. But Neil has proved something about the characteristics of that imaginary space. Because for there to be a surface, there must be an interior. There is none until Dr. Turok and his two accomplices wrote a paper in 2025 proving that what is inside the singularity, the curvature singularity demarking the boundary of physics in the supermassive black hole, he discovered what's inside. It is called, according to linear logic, the anti-universe. And he says on the Kirchheim-Mungel program, they are parallel. That is incorrect. No, they're not parallel. Do you know why? It goes back to Euclid. If they were parallel, then the universe is half inside the black holes. Can that be proved? It cannot be proved because it's untrue. Although that's actually not a proof, I'm just summing up for you what I have proved using the most rigorous mathematical proofs known to science. I got it. I found out what's inside the black hole. Neil Turok says that the surface at which physics ends has an anti-universe on the inside. That is extremely close to the right answer. And I will divulge to you now, using a new mathematical system, that Neil very closely got it right. But what he missed is so profound that words cannot sum it up. Unless I do it. And that's what I'm going to do now. With the dyadic fractions based on the base 2 number system which the universe uses. That number system has a center number of 1, and that can be proved to be a surface. I proved that in physical space, that surface is a quantum sphere. A quantum sphere. Now we can define for the first time exactly what is meant by quantum. What do you mean when you say quantum? There is only one right answer, and nobody has ever seen it. I did. That quantum 1 is the surface inside of which we may tentatively say, until we prove what it actually is, it is definitely imaginary. It is imaginary. What is inside the surface of space is imaginary something. It is imaginary. It is not sensible. What is outside the surface of the quantum sphere is therefore the only definition of space. Space has a center that is not 0. That's the additive identity that doesn't fit. The multiplicative identity is 1. The multiplicative identity enters into the computation of a fraction. A fraction is a multiplicative number, not an additive number. You may see that there is a significant difference in the construction of those two numbers. The lowest counting number is 1. The lowest spherical number is 1 proportion 1, and that is the center of space. Space has a center, or it would not have an edge. So if you say that the center of your space is 0, which is exactly what science uses, then you have no edge. And those are two polar infinities. That makes quadratic space, requiring too much complication, beginning with the Pythagorean theorem, going to the square root function, ending with calculus and complexity. That will not do. That is not beautiful. That is not simple. And therefore, according to Dirac and myself and others, that cannot be correct. I have proved it is incorrect. So what is correct? Beginning with the center number of 1 over 1, which is 1 proportion 1, as I taught you, so you know that. 1 over 1 is a fraction. It is the smallest number in the universe. 1 proportion 1. There is no number less than that. That will be your first challenge, because you know that if you go up from 1 over 1, the next rational number is 2 over 1, and then 4 over 1, 8, 16, 32, 64, 128, 256, 512, 1024, 2048, 4096, and then it just keeps going on a mathematical progression that is not linear. It is not a linear progression. It does not go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It goes in powers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Is there a 0? There is. 2 to the 0th power equals 1. That has been proved. And that is the most beautiful equation in mathematics. From this simple identity, establishing proportional space, formerly called multiplicative space, I have renamed it because I know what I'm talking about. Those numbers, 2 over 1, 4 over 1, all the way up to infinity, have reciprocal numbers going in, but they are not less than 1. 1 over 2 is not less than 1, but it is less than 1 proportion 1. But when you say that, you can prove, as I have, that the circle has that central value, such that for all the binary numbers defined as the powers of 2 going in 2 directions, in or out from the surface of the circle, 1 over 2 is the first counting number going in, and it goes to infinity because it cannot reach 0. There is no 0. So what are those numbers? They are called imaginary numbers. And 1 over 2 is the highest imaginary number, reflected on a black mirror that Neil Turok discovered, that the 1 over 2, which is greater than 1 over 1, going in the wrong direction, is the reciprocal opposite of 2 over 1. So now you have a circle that's 1 proportion 1 on the plane, and now you have the first quantum jump in 2 directions at the same time. Time! The jump from 0 to 1 is linear quantization. The jump from the circle, which is a surface with a value of 1 over 1, goes to 2 over 1 and goes in the other direction, 1 over 2. That is light speed. That is light speed. That is the only correct definition of light speed. The frequency is 2. The wavelength is 1/2. That's finite. The universe is finite because of light. Light defines the universe as finite. Why? Because there's a lowest number. That means there's a highest number. Let's find it so that we can conjugate to infinities, but not on add. The linear infinities are plus and minus. Those add to 0. From the circle, the circular infinity going out, multiplied by the circular infinity going in, equals 1. That's the lowest number. 1. That is the constancy of light speed. It's always 1, but it's a rate. Speed is not a linear number. Light speed is approximately 3 million meters over 1 second. Define a second. That'll be in the next video. Thank you for tuning in. I hope this gives you a golden insight for what is to come. We are going to solve for the black hole, and that will unleash a new era in astrophysics. I will also show you that this same number system not only defines light speed geometrically correctly for the first time in history, superseding Einstein, but it also gives us the definition of the quantum. And there are 2 quantum values. That will be in the next lecture. Thank you for tuning in. This is science. It's collaborative. It's communicative. I'm doing my job. If you would like to help, you might want to leave a comment and I'll indicate to you how you can help. But don't get out your wallet. I don't want or need your money. Spend it on yourself. Thank you so much. It means a lot to a true scientist to be heard. The binary number system will redefine space with a new characteristic that is not time. It's called energy. Energy. For your homework, write down just for yourself, what is the definition of energy spatially? What is the spatial definition of energy? Good luck with that one. Try not to lose your mind. Your physicists have. I will save you from psychosis in the next video. Keep tuned in. There's much more to come. Keep looking up. This is Ada Galactic, bringing you the secrets of the universe. Look around, see if anyone else is. I bow to the creator of all, who made this possible. Thank you.